Is Caroline around? Can we start?
Yes, I'm around.
Okay. Are we going to wait 2 more minutes, or I can start the meeting? Please let me know as it's time.
I think we can start.
All right. Thank you. Is it possible to remove me from organize? I mean,
just a minute.
yes, please, because of the noise. It's okay. Thank you very much. Are you recording?
Yes, I am.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar on the topic Upskilling through Volunteerism and Training. Before going further, I would like to know if there are some French speakers in the room. If yes, please put in the chat so that I will be summarizing some parts of the information that will be shared here in this meeting. If not, so it means we're gonna speak only in English, right?
Okay.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat. That means everyone here is English speaker. Okay, all right. So this webinar has been organized in common by the Pan-African Young Diplomats Forum. And as you know, the global so ladies and gentlemen, I was saying though, this webinar has been organized jointly by the Global Bridge Diplomacy and the Pan-African Young Diplomats Forum. Both of them are seeking to explore volunteerism and training opportunities as pathways to professional development in diplomacy. And today we have speakers with us. Soon I will be getting you to know them. And before that, allow me to give the floor to a lady who will be opening this meeting. Her name is Caroline. Caroline is a member of this Global Bridge Diplomacy, and she is with us tonight to open this meeting. And I would like to give her the floor to open the meeting. Please, Caroline, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Demer. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar hosted by Global Bridge Diplomacy in partnership with the Pan-African Young Diplomats Forum. My name is Caroline Yagaki, and I'm honored to deliver the opening remarks for today's session. Our theme, Upskilling through Volunteerism, is a powerful reminder of how every experience, no matter how small or unrelated it may seem, can prepare us for greater opportunities. And this brings to mind the timeless story of David and Goliath. David was a young shepherd, someone who appeared to have little in common with the warriors of his time. Yet, when faced with the giant Goliath, he relied on his unique experience as a shepherd to succeed. Using a sling and stones, tools which he had mastered while protecting his sheep, David achieved what seasoned warriors of his time could not achieve, and in that, by him killing Goliath. His story reminds us that no experience is ever in vain. In the same way, volunteerism equips us with tools that may not seem significant at first, but often become the very foundation of our success. Through volunteering, we learn leadership, communication, problem solving, and resilience are skills that prepare us to face the giants in our careers and communities. Today, as we explore how volunteerism can be a pathway to personal and professional growth, I encourage you to reflect on the value of experiences, big or small. Like David, you might already possess the tools you need to create meaningful impact. I want to express my deepest gratitude to our esteemed speakers and panelists who will share their insights and experiences today. I also thank each of you for joining us. Your participation is a testament to your commitment to learning, growth, and service. So let us engage, ask questions, and collaborate to uncover how volunteerism can transform our lives and the world around us. Together, we can bridge the gap between potential and achievement, turning every experience into a stepping stone for success. Thank you and welcome to the webinar.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Do you know Caroline? Caroline is a passionate advocate for diplomacy, international relations, and community empowerment. She is the founder and executive director of Global Bridge Diplomacy. That's why today you heard from her for the opening remarks. It's an organization dedicated to fostering partnerships that address global challenges, promote peaceful conflict resolution, and empower the next generation of diplomats and change makers. She presented an award-winning research paper on the root causes of conflict in South Sudan at a diplomatic dinner attended by dignitaries, highlighting her commitment to addressing critical global issues. Thank you very much, Caroline, for these opening remarks. And now, without wasting time, I would like to introduce to you our panelists, those wonderful leaders who accepted to share with us tonight their experiences regarding volunteerism and training. First of all, let me introduce to you Miss Precious Eze. She's a Nigerian lawyer with more than 3 years of national and international experience. She holds an Erasmus Mundus Master in International Law of Global Security, Peace and Development. Precious, are you with us? What can you share tonight regarding your experience in this subject we are discussing tonight, knowing diplomacy around, volunteerism and training? You have 4 to 6 minutes to let us know before we give the floor to the other panelists.
Okay, I'm not sure on which path to go, but maybe I'll share a bit of my own personal experience and
Yes, please.
give general tips on what could be helpful. So generally, depending on your stage in life and where you are, for me, volunteering started, that would determine what volunteer opportunities you can access, depending on how old you are and what stage of life you are. My own volunteering experience started when I was in the university, when I began to, realize the utility and value that volunteering provided. There was this NGO or society that was in my school. I signed up with them and undertook a couple of projects with them. And I generally was just very interested in, volunteering for things I was interested in. So most of my initial volunteering experiences happened in the university. And if you're also in the university right now, I would recommend that depending on what area you're interested in. I was speaking to someone some time ago. She told me she was interested in human rights, women's rights, gender, and all of that. And one recommendation I told her was, why don't you're on holidays right now, why don't you just write the Ministry of Women Affairs in your state and tell them you want to volunteer? And guess what? She did. And they go back to her and they told her, yes, you can join us. So depending on what you're interested in, wherever you are, you can just research or Google NGOs in your states or community where you live in, or there could be some student societies in your school. Sign up with them and start something. Now, the importance of starting small and starting with this small, like, with what you have in your environment at the moment is that eventually this could translate into bigger and global opportunities. So for me, I kept doing all of this kind of volunteering during my university education. And then after my law school, I stumbled across a volunteering opportunity with the European Union Youth Sounding Board in Nigeria. That was going to be my first global, opportunity. I've been applying for other global opportunities, but somehow never really got through or was never successful. During the application process of this European Union Youth Sounding Board, all of the experience I had been doing throughout uni locally was very key and relevant in making a case for why I was suitable. In fact, most of the questions they expected us to answer, which was in the application form, was asking things like, how have you engaged with a large number of youths? What experience do you have with utilizing media and policy for XYZ? What volunteering experiences do you have? That. So the point is, if I hadn't done those initial volunteering, I would not have qualified for this one. So that's why starting small and utilizing your background opportunities where you are would matter in like getting bigger volunteer roles nationally and internationally. Then and then I also made the point of finding out what you're interested in. If you're into science or tech or data protection, Google maybe NGOs on science and tech. Google if you're interested in women's rights. Think about organizations that match what you're interested in, and then just reach out to them. You'll be very, very surprised. Many of them will be happy to have you. Who doesn't want, free helping hand? So that's one point. Then in terms of more regional volunteer opportunities, there is I don't know, some of you may already know the United Nations volunteers. It's also a very good opportunity, and this one is usually paid. It's also a very easy, one of the, I wouldn't say easy, but like more trusted ways to get into the UN. You just go to the UNV website, just Google online, start and open a profile, fill up your profile. There's some people that opened profiles a long time ago and I'd even forgotten that they had opened a profile. And then years later, they just said, they actually reached out to me and that's how I got this job. So, put yourself out there and at least put your profile there because that's the only way you can get reached out to. So that's one of the global volunteer platforms that exist. There's also the AU, African Union Youth Volunteers. I trust that some of you may already know about this one and may have even applied. But it's usually very, very competitive, but it never hurts to still apply. Then another way that you could also volunteer internationally or regionally are some of these boards. Like, for example, there was an NGO, I don't know, Democracy Moves is an international NGO that recently launched out a call for, board members, volunteers. So there's some organizations like this. And I think there was even one by the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Nigeria and maybe in other countries. So they're like organizations that usually have advisory boards calling for youth to volunteer. And in your country as well, you may also have like a national youth volunteer body or something like that.
Okay,
So,
thank you, Precious. I will come back to you.
okay, that's fine.
And additionally, what I can say, Precious sat as chairperson of the Governance, Peace and Migration Committee of the European Union Youth Sounding Board in Nigeria and worked as a training council at the Nigerian Federal Ministry of Justice and Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. I will tell more about her later. And now the second speaker I'm going to introduce to you is Mr. Mahamadou Kamara. Mahamadou Kamara past service as the Deputy Development Counselor at the British Embassy in Bamako, where he champions the UK's development and humanitarian priorities here in Mali, with a diverse portfolio encompassing health, education, women's empowerment, climate action, and food security. He collaborates with technical experts in Dakar and London to design impactful strategies. Mahamadou Kamara, are you around? Can I see your face? Great, you are here.
I'm there, yeah.
Kamara, thank you very much for joining us. So, tell us.
All right. Thank you very much, Geneva, and also thank you, Precious. It's really good to have like this tremendous youth working to empower others also to scale up in their different areas as well. So my like intervention will be kind of more oriented on the role of youth in terms of volunteerism and also training. Kind of not escalating on what Precious has just mentioned so that we don't duplicate the same thing. So talking about like volunteerism and talking about my experience, I would just say that actually for all those who are here, that actually the volunteerism is a pathway that has profoundly kind of shaped my life and the career. And when we take like kind of my journey in terms of diplomacy, it begins with an organization called US Peace Corps Volunteers. So it's like the US Peace Corps Volunteers is a program that I think most of you might have in your different countries. Unfortunately, for Mali, it was closed since 2012 after the coup. So during that period of working with the volunteers, I have discovered, okay, the transformative power of giving my time and give to the cause larger than what you usually do. So most of the time when we talk about volunteerism, we think that we need definitely to kind of join organizations who are already in volunteers. We can also build up our own organizations, like creating an association, creating a club, you know, kind of advocating for a given specific change, then you are definitely doing voluntary work. So in terms of how, you know, volunteerism has helped me, you know, shape my careers and everything as a diplomat. So I will say that first of all, it's kind of develop a critical skills for me. The critical skills in terms of communication, cultural sensitivity, teamwork, like competencies that are really essential for any diplomat. So when we make like the connection, usually when we say diplomatic initiatives is usually kind of creating that borders between different countries. And when we talk about different countries, definitely we talk also about different culture and different beliefs and stuff like that. And also it has, you know, kind of developed like this opportunity to mediate between like different diverse groups of women in the areas, villages, or other discussing directly with, you know, farmer groups and so on and so forth. So I think this is really, so to give you like a kind of specific action, usually when the Peace Corps volunteers, like there was a techniques that I'm still using till now that I learned since, you know, I started that program with the Peace Corps volunteers back to the 2003. That we call PACA, PACA training. The PACA is like participatory analysis for community approach. So usually whenever like there is any specific program that Peace Corps volunteers were supporting the community in which they are already placed, they kind of help, you know, do a need assessment. So, and during that need assessment, it brought me to a very far village in Mali, in the border between Mali and Burkina Faso, and where I was supposed to train like the community members, as included the Peace Corps volunteers that was based there, to kind of learn how to, you know, raise the questions, to, you know, identify the crucial need and prioritizing the needs of the village. I was really kind of surprised when the Peace Corps volunteer, who was an American speaking my local language, invited me to eat a local food that we call to. It's like a kind of maize based. And since then, we kind of being really connected when even I get the chance to go to the US many times.
You.
Oh,
Thank
it's
you,
finished?
Kamara.
Your time is so quick. Okay, anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Kamara. I will ask another question to complete that. It's really interesting. And as you know, we also have people connected who also want maybe to ask questions, and we will come back to you. We have 5 speakers, so I would like to hear from all of you, and then I give the chance to the audience to talk as well. I'm sorry. And ladies and gentlemen, Mahamadou Kamara is also an accomplished entrepreneur. He has founded and led a consultancy firm specializing in development, consulting, leadership training, translations, and monitoring and evaluation. All right. Now, Mrs. Sonia Alana. Sonia Alana is a certified etiquette and image consultant, public speaking coach, and corporate trainer. She has over 20 years of experience as a career diplomat and served as the first female director of protocol to a Nigerian president, President Olusegun Obasanjo. During her tenure, she closely assisted in the organization of state and official visits for dignitaries such as Queen Elizabeth II, the King and Queen of Spain, Margaret Thatcher, and President Bush. Mrs. Alana has also organized numerous protocol and etiquette training programs and retreats for high-level public functionaries, captains and industry, corporate organizations, and at the presidency, obviously. Mrs. Sonia Alana, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Geneva, and good evening, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. As the case may be, it's really exciting to be here because as an old school diplomat, I started my diplomatic career in 1984. So you can imagine things were different then. We didn't have the benefit of the internet, of social media, and everything that you're having today. My journey, should I start, or my dream of becoming a diplomat started when I was 11 years old. And I told my father that I wanted to become a diplomat. And to be honest, at 11, I didn't really know what it meant to be a diplomat. All I knew that diplomats lived some kind of posh, elegant lifestyle. And I thought, yeah, I fit in there. But now fast forward, I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a greenhorn, which means I had no experience and no background and really no expectations. I didn't even know what to expect. And that's why I find that this volunteerism now has a great advantage that we didn't have. Now, you see, the question is, why do you want to become a diplomat? Why are you interested in diplomacy? Are you seeking to answer a question? Are you seeking to fill a gap? Are you seeking to help? It may be anything. There may be so many things. But that is where the volunteerism or the opportunity to volunteer is so great. And I thank the speakers that have spoken before, both Precious and
Kamara
Mamadou Kamara, speaking from their experience, which is really nice. And they have itemized the different aspects. You can as a volunteer, you can address your mind to what it is exactly that your core, where your core interest lies, right? So it was when I entered the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Nigeria, I now realized there were so many different departments. There was European Affairs, there was United Nations, first United Nations Department, second United Nations Department, there was African Affairs, etc., etc. So there are so many arms. There was administration, there was this and there was that. So now what volunteerism affords you is going into the field prepared. And upskilling means you find your strengths to bring something to the table. And where you find that you are still lacking in certain strengths, you have the opportunity, either through training, self-development, to acquire those skills to be able to serve effectively. And just as the speaker that spoke before me spoke, Mamadou Kamara, when he mentioned communication is key for a diplomat. You need to learn how to communicate well, the different aspects of communication, both the listening part, the speaking part, the different kinds of or even the written part, because in diplomacy, you write a lot of reports. So where you find that maybe you might be lacking in that particular area, you can begin to address yourself to those to begin to be able to perfect the art of written communication. How do you write a note verbal? How do you write to another member state, and so on? And then also the specific areas when we talked about, okay, we also talked about the cultural sensitivities. Now, of course, diplomacy is worldwide, and you'll be surprised that what we see as a norm in one country is completely different in another. But another thing that I find is very key in volunteerism is that you already begin to build a network. You begin to build a global network. And that network, you can leverage on it for your entire life. I retired as a diplomat. I've retired 5 years ago, that I'm in retirement now. But the global network that I built are still friends that I have sustained even till now. And you never know how they will help you. You know, you might be fellow volunteers, but somewhere down the line, one person becomes a minister, one person becomes a president, one person becomes, you know, and you have built that network already, that community. And that is so beautiful. Yes. So
yes, thank you very much, Tony, for these first words you gave us. I can see it's really interesting. And we also even have already a question for you, Precious, in the chat. So maybe you can check and feel free to write to Ruth, who taught something for you, Miss Precious, if you are with us. Now, I would like to say, in addition to Mrs. Sonia's professional accomplishments, she has a passion for youth and women, and serves as the grand patron of the Association of Nigerian Female Students. She is fluent in French, German, and English, and she's a distinguished Toastmaster, and it is one of the organizations we share. And this is how I met Sonia, as also at Toastmasters. Now, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Okanda, who is a visionary behind Unlock Young Leaders Summit, UYLS, and Okanda Leadership Academy, where he has led transformative programs empowering young leaders, fostering organizational excellence, and advancing policy innovation, both in Kenya and internationally. With a proven track record in executive leadership, governance, coaching, strategic planning, and building high-performing teams, Mr. Okanda specializes in driving complex projects to successful outcomes. He is dedicated to creating sustainable, performance-driven teams, cultures that align individual growth with organizational success. Mr. Okanda, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so happy and honored to connect with quite a number of diverse leaders who are listening to us this evening. It's really an honor. As you've rightly introduced me, my name is Eugene Okanda. And what I can say about my diplomatic journey, I never knew that I was getting into diplomacy. I was just a young man, passionate for community, national transformation, by spearheading opportunities and platforms that are building capacity for the young people to be raised up as values-driven, but also vision-oriented and passion sort of based. With the lack of and insufficient leadership and governance that is able to steward sustainable development across Africa, it bothered me, especially as a university student. So during my final year as a university student, I remember I was tasked to organize a student leadership summit that brought together over 600 student leaders from about 7 universities that neighbored my university, Kenyatta University. For those who are Kenyans can and know, Kenyatta University is one of the biggest universities here in Kenya. And that journey spark a passion that has never died since then. Those are now 7 years ago, and the passion continued to grow and to blossom. And I remember just finishing up that summit and looking at the auditorium where young people are seated, and I told myself, I remember I made a commitment with myself that I'm going to be at the forefront, both to steward and to making sure that I steward personal leadership, but also corporate leadership, and that is what sparked my journey. And I remembered the words of the 64th United States Secretary of the State. Her name is Madeleine Albright, who is also an American diplomat and political scientist. And I remembered her words that I came across after reading a book by Ariel Fox. And she says that the opportunities for leadership are all around us, but the ability to lead is deep within us. And those words really kept me going. And of course, now that's when I founded the Unlock Young Leaders Summit. Through that, I was able to be taken in through a national program that was running. It was a governance internship program. I got an opportunity to work for the government for 13 months as a volunteer under the Ministry of Youth Affairs. And I was running program across various counties through the Ministry of Youth Affairs. And later on, I continuously subjected myself under systematic growth and development as far as my leadership was concerned. And I got opportunity also to volunteer with the Global Leadership Summit at the Kenyan chapter. We were able to pull together a leadership summit that brought together more than 3,000 government leaders, business leaders, and various stakeholders. And continuously, to just cut the long story short, last year, I got an opportunity to serve as the Kenya United Nations Youth Delegate. And I got an opportunity to travel to New York, actively participating during the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly. I spoke in 3 panel discussions, spearheading what really a youth, the problems of the youth from the national angle. So I think just to say this as I bring this to an end, any person who is looking for to get into diplomacy, you need to understand the heart of the matter from your national perspective. If you do not understand the affairs that are happening in your country, forget about diplomacy, because what are you then going to talk about? But also diplomacy has to meet activism. So activism basically is you being an active citizen. So what are the things that are bothering you in your country, and soiling your hands to making sure that you champion the things that you're championing. And there's 17 SDGs. You just need to pick 1 or 2 and run with it so passionately. I ran with SDG number 4, SDG number 8, and SDG number 16. And those are the things that have been given the heartbeat of the work that I do. Now authored 3 books, won 4 awards because of the work that I continue to champion. So I look forward to just contributing and inspiring someone in this call that the ability for us to transform the Africa we need and even the global space that we need, it belongs to us as the young people, but it will not be given to us. We must build capacity to step into that muddy waters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okanda. This is so inspirational. It's inspiring, and I think you should also add SGD number 5. Don't forget this. All right. Now I can see that in the audience, several people would like to ask questions, to talk. So as I can notice, our last speaker is not around, Mr. Bilali. So I would like to give the floor to Mwamwasi Eunice Wawuda. Are you here? You said that you would like to ask a question to Sonia.
Yes, I am here. Good evening.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Receive warm greetings from Kenya. My name is Eunice Wawuda, and I'm so grateful that I'm in this platform. And pardon, that is my child. Please forgive me. Mama, just give me a minute.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question for Sonia. I am so glad that we have... Sorry, apologies. I'm so glad that mothers in the house, I know you can relate to this. I'm so glad that we are almost, I think I have a feeling like we are on the same line. I am a student from University of Nairobi, and I am actively involved in volunteering in protocol. Our chairman of the department, Dr. Patrick Maluki, or rather Professor Patrick Maluki, I'm part of a team that was trained under the diplomatic etiquette, protocol, and event management. And with that, I've been able to volunteer in quite a number of events. I was part of a team that was bringing the delegation of Bill Gates when he was coming to University of Nairobi to deliver a speech on GMO. I was also part of a team that led the protocol unit when we were having the Women in Diplomacy conference, among many other conferences that have been able to be at the forefront of protocol. And I can say for sure that there has been a joy in it. And when you mentioned of why are we volunteering, I think for me, it is more of trying to polish the skill so that I could get an entry level in that area, because my interest has really grown. And I was hoping if after this training, maybe we could have a side chat and you could come and share your wisdom and expertise in this so that you could train. We are so many that is trained. My colleague is also here, Yvette. I can see she's also here in this platform. We would like to have you on board so that you could add your wisdom to us and sharpen our skills and train us and see how we can be able to plug in and how we can be able to identify the opportunities in protocol, because I have a feeling that protocol is misused, for lack of a better word. Allow me to use that. Or rather, it is not really understood. There's a lot of bridge and break of protocol when it comes to diplomacy, and people don't get to understand that enough. So I'm so happy that we are in this platform together, and maybe we could have a side chat for that one more. But before that, maybe you could share some of the candid experiences that you've had in protocol before we move on.
Thank you so much, Eunice. Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to connect with you. And it is precisely this cross-fertilization of ideas that Africa needs so much. You know, we need to move forward, and we need to even understand ourselves. And as you said, protocol is often misunderstood. But and I would also add that very often protocol is a thankless job, because when everything goes well, nobody notices. But if there's one mistake, there is a problem. So in protocol, there is zero margin for error. And I would absolutely love to connect with you and your team on maybe, as you said, outside of this particular forum, because here we have right now an agenda, so I don't want to really take too much time, but we will definitely connect, you know, going forward. So thank you so much. I'm absolutely delighted to make your acquaintance.
Thank you very much, DTM Sony. I would like to ask Precious if she wants to ask anything, to add anything else regarding her experience that she was sharing with us. And in the chat, someone was asking, if you don't mind, could you kindly type the organizations that offer volunteering opportunities? I remember you talked about UN Volunteer and also African Union, or you are the one who is the best to talk about it. Go ahead, Precious. Your microphone.
I
Okay.
I don't have anything else to add, but I will just type in the chat box responding to the question about the organizations. And generally, you could even just do a blank Google search, a wide Google search rather, and just type volunteering opportunities in XYZ field in XYZ country. Just feel free to tweak the keywords and you would find different results. However, I will type in the chat box some of the ones I mentioned.
All right. And she would also want to connect with you. If you are willing, she let her LinkedIn on the chat.
Yes, I already just did.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Now I would like to move on and try to ask a specific, experience you would like to share with us. What has been wonderful, or what is your most interesting journey in this field that you would like to share tonight with this audience, Mr. Okanda?
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know if you can just repeat the question one more time.
I was asking, what can you share with us? It can be an anecdote or something which has really touched you in your journey on this field of volunteerism and diplomacy.
Thank you so much. And maybe for those who don't know, I'm also from Kenya. So it's really an honor. And I love to connect with quite a number of us, possibly from Kenya. For me, when I attended, I used to read about the United Nations General Assembly, and they never understood what really they do in terms of, you look at the world, the peace is becoming a global pandemic, and it looks like we are too far from achieving that sustainable development goal. You look at the issues of zero hunger. Countries are way too far. When the framers of the Sustainable Development Goals were putting the 17 goals in 2015, they were ambitious. They were looking forward for a world where every human being will have a dignified life. But look, we are just under 6 years. And that really, I remember when I was attending the General Assembly, it was quite evident that nations are too far from achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And sad still, from the African perspective, right now we are talking about Vision 2063. And it bothered me because if countries and nations are going to sit down and set goals that are too far from being achieved, then we are not going anywhere. 2063 looks like it's too far, but look at countries, the margin between the poor and the rich is widening every single day. And when I was seated and listening to the members talking about their commitments toward making the world a dignified place, I was wondering and asking myself, who is going to do this? And it dawned to me that we are the generation. We are the leaders. We are the ones who are supposed to make that commitment. And when I was flying back to this country, I made a commitment and I told myself, I'm not going to look back. I'm going to soil my hands, and I'm going to also rise with other young people. And we have created platforms. We have been going to high schools. We have been to universities where we just connect, engage, and interact with other young minds. Because the truth of the matter is that where the world is supposed to go, it is until the mindset of the young people is continuously transformed. And I love the crop of young people who are rising. They understand the mandate. From the Kenyan perspective, the other day we made a world statement by showing that young people can rise up and say no to governance that is not working for the common citizen. And those are the vibes, and those are the diligence and commitment that we need as a people. But also lastly, one of the things that also really inspired me is having the regional interconnection and also intergenerational dialogue. I remember I happened to go to Tanzania and look at what the young people of Tanzania are doing. I was in Rwanda looking at what the young people of Rwanda are doing. And I was also in South Sudan, a country that is just coming from the ravages of war, and looking at the ambition, the hope that young people are actually committing to. In December, I was up in Ethiopia looking at the commitment of these young people, and they're so hopeful that their nations are going to change. But one of the things that I will just want to end by saying is that as young people, we need to be at the forefront, and we should not be the receivers of policies. We need to be the contributors and key partners to the shapers and the framers of policies, so that we continue to champion for policies that work for us, not for our leaders, policies that work for us. And we have to be loud. We have to be where these conversations are happening, because meaningful youth engagement cannot happen just by ticking a box. It's when we are present and we are able to challenge the status quo. And for me, that really inspired my diplomatic journey, and I commit to continuously get into this. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and your experience in this. I would like to ask Mahamadou Kamara, what inspires you as a young diplomat?
All right. Thank you very much, and thank you to the other panelists as well. Actually, the inspiration, like as you mentioned, my first job was not intended to be a diplomat. Actually, my diplomatic kind of experience started when I joined the United Nations. So that's bring me also to kind of draw the line that actually we have the possibility to serve outside in regional organization where we are diplomats, or we have the possibility also to serve within our countries where we play more in terms of like building the relationship between our country and the diplomatic mission that we are serving. When it comes to the mission, especially my first journey in the diplomatic section was joining the UN mission in Mali, where I was in charge of kind of working all capacity building of the different forces, and also kind of connecting the UN missions and also the Malian, high level decision makers actually. So when we see these kind of things and we are in charge of doing these activities for the country, it's kind of more challenging, because at a certain time you have like that possibility to change stuff. At the same time, to be really careful, as Sonia mentioned, not kind of doing any error that can be taken as a big bridge to change, kind of things. To continue on that field also, what I will definitely say that actually, since I was not meant to be in the diplomatic mission, so I had taken lots of courses which are really targeted in diplomacy, that kind of, paved my way, since I came in it, which was not planned. So I had to work really hard, okay, to take courses, to like tackling to the different mocks or possibilities that exist that's related to my field of work, and also getting some mentorship opportunities also with some others who have been involved in the diplomatic area for a long period, not learning from their experiences and others. So I will really encourage you also to value that as well. Coming back also on the question that was posed in the chat, which means that why and how we used to kind of manage to survive or live without getting a paid volunteering activities. I know, as I said, usually, especially those who are in school or who are even not in school, who have finished with school, you don't need actually to spend the whole, your full time in volunteering activities. Any single step activity that you do for the society or joining any other activities, kind of foster your step toward the diplomatic or toward the volunteerism to get more experience and commitment. And this commitment can be, proof that actually when you need any specific, engagement with any diplomatic missions, to value that as well. So, and also to kind of close up, so I would just say that actually when we have all these things, so we just need to kind of encourage, other fellows to ask more questions and share your aspiration with, some mentors like Sonia who are really high. I would be happy to connect with her as well. And also to kind of free like this relationship. This will help us to kind of do better in our different fields of work.
Thank you, Kamara. And being here today is also volunteerism, because we are all volunteering and sharing the experiences with others. This is really why we are here today. I would like to jump in the chat box to ask this question to Precious, so that later she will complete with more regarding her experience. Precious, we have a question in the chat box for all of you, the whole panel. What was your source of income during that whole volunteering time? The person said more to Mr. Okanda, so we will come back to you, Mr. Okanda, later. Precious, do you have something to say about this? I think that Precious is not around.
The volunteering activities that I embarked on when I was in university, I didn't need to bother much because I was a student and I was receiving pocket money from my parents, and I was, just doing it at during my free time. So it wasn't so much of a struggle. Then for the European Union Youth Sounding Board, already they tell you that it's unpaid. It's an unpaid position, but usually you get funded for maybe if you have to undertake any travel for the organization, or maybe data reimbursement expenses and all. And it wasn't a full-time job really. So you had your time. Most of us who were on the board had full-time jobs. At the time I was at the ministry. So most of these volunteering roles are things that you do not necessarily need to, work on 9 to 5. They're usually just a side, depending. The ones that may require full-time roles, like the United Nations volunteers or the African Union volunteers, those ones are actually paid. And they are actually paid very good salaries. So, except maybe it depends, maybe where you reach out to an organization yourself and now decide to volunteer on a more full-time basis, the idea will be that you have some sort of support from family members or from family, really, or that you have some money saved. I think it's just a trade-off of what you want. If you feel like that volunteer, or maybe let me extend it to internships. In my case, there was an internship I had to undertake in an international court, which is unpaid. And like I literally had to pay through my nose to survive during the internship. But I'm like, okay, I know that I'm specialized in the field of international law, and this experience from an international court would definitely look good for me, for my career trajectory. So it's just your decision to make. Maybe save, work part-time, and fund yourself. It's never easy, but it would definitely reap its benefits in the future. Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to let you keep the floor if you wish to add something on your experience. Do you want to share with us today? What are you telling yourself? Oh, I'm here in this webinar today. The most thing I would like to share with all these people. What is it? Precious, your
Oh,
microphone
okay, that was
is.
me. Okay, I just wanted to be sure it was me you were asking. So to get your question again, like one key thing I would
You would
tell.
like to share with this audience, upskilling, volunteerism, and training. This webinar, what is the most thing you would like to leave today with us that is really important for you to share on the topic?
Okay, maybe more than one thing. First of all, be consistent. Like you may not see the benefit now. It could be really tough to keep pushing, but remain consistent. There was this, I mean, maybe I'm such a long storyteller, but I'll just really tell the story briefly. I was watching the video of one woman who I think she wrote a story. She was like a scriptwriter for Marvel. And she shared the story of how she reached out to like the executive director, like the owner of Marvel. She pitched herself. She was like, I've written stories for XYZ, XYZ. I want to write a story for Marvel. I want to be a scriptwriter for Marvel. She pitched herself. This executive director did not respond until then 1 year later, someone from Marvel just reaches out to her and says, oh, we have a story. Are you interested in like writing and stuff? And that was how she became this like award-winning writer for Marvel, and she like wrote a story. And then she now went back and wrote that executive director she met the last time and then thanked him. And guess what he said? He said, sorry it took this long. So that means the first time she sent that email, he read it, but just did not respond. But the fact that he read it and did not act, it felt like her effort was in vain. It felt like, her effort didn't make sense. But it took 1 whole year for that email she sent to materialize. And the fact that the man did not respond did not mean that he wasn't working on it. So consistency on the right track is really key. And then also the second thing is strategize. Depending on what field or area you are, don't just volunteer or do things like randomly. Be strategic and make sure that it is useful for you and relevant in the end. Just be very strategic. Work smart, not hard.
Yeah. Thank you, Precious, for sharing these wonderful stories with us. I would like to ask Sonia if you want to answer the question because it is directed to the whole panel, and then I will give the floor to Mr. Okanda, to whom it is specifically oriented to. Mrs. Sonia,
Okay, so the question
what was your source of income during that whole volunteering time? This is the biggest challenge we face. This is a question in the chat from Joanne Asimwe. We think of volunteering, but then how do I survive?
Yes, thank you very much. You know, to volunteer really is, as the word implies, you are volunteering. So it's not necessarily a paid service. So when you want to volunteer, don't look for the money, but rather dwell on your passion. It is your passion that is the driver. It's your passion that will actually be the door opener. Volunteering is the first step towards a bigger opportunity. So you have the opportunity to prove your mettle as a volunteer, and that can then open the doors for paid remuneration. That's what I would say for now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Okanda?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. In fact, I love it because I remember when I was getting into volunteering for the government, I make a lot of jokes with this reality that one time in my life, I volunteered for the government, and the government should be having money to pay me, but I volunteered for 13 good months. And I remember during that period of time, the organization that was training us, one of the components that they were training us on is resource mobilization. So do you have this vision of a commitment to serve, and you can pull a crowd of people who believe in your vision, and they can support you through that journey? That was the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my life, but it opened my mind so greatly. So I sat down one evening. They gave us an opportunity. They're able to train you on what resource mobilization looks like. You're given a sheet. You think critically about your network, and that's why it's so important, especially for young diplomats who are still in school here. Build value-driven networks. Don't just have numbers of people in your phone. Build values-driven networks. And that is exactly what I did. Do you know, out of my network, I had around 15 people who walked the journey with me for 13 months. I had people who were sending me resources. They were sending me money because they believed in my vision. And that's how I survived for the 13 months. And one of the a major outcome of that kind of a reality, I learned how to resource mobilize for my own organization. Until today, now I do not just have an NGO, but I have a company. I have a corporate training and consultancy firm that I'm also making sure that I know how to raise funds for the same. But the other volunteer program, when I was serving as the Kenya United Nations Youth representative in 2024, the program was fully funded. And of course, just like as Precious has rightly said, we were not working for all the time. It was not full time. So when I was not doing my diplomatic work, I was running my consultancy and training workshops with institutions and organizations, and that's how I was making a living. Now, just to put a pin right there, you need to diversify your skill sets. It is your skill sets empowered by the knowledge you have that will give you the resources you need. So it is not enough just to have the knowledge. Understand the skill set and look at what can you be doing during that period of volunteering. In conclusion, remember, volunteering is a commitment to serve. So if you're looking at money, if you're money-oriented kind of a mindset, it can really frustrate you. But if you have the vision, you build the right mindset, you create the right networks, I surely tell you that you're going to survive through the process. And that's exactly how I was able to pull through that journey. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing all these wonderful and so interesting stories. I know people want to know more, and this is why also we are here today. We will connect to have conversations later, to develop other topics together. And this webinar is a joint, effort by Global Bridge Diplomacy and the Pan-African Young Diplomats Forum. And today, the objectives of this webinar is really to raise the awareness on the importance of volunteerism in skill development and career advancement, to provide insight into training opportunities and resources available for young people to navigate their ways into diplomatic path, and also to foster networking and collaboration among participants, promoting mentorship and knowledge sharing, to highlight the success stories of individuals who have leveraged volunteerism and training to build successful career in diplomacy. So that said, I would like to thank all the panelists who have accepted today to share their experience with you, with us. And it was wonderful meeting all of you. If there are some questions you would like to ask, please feel free to write down your question in the chat box or raise your hand if you want to talk. Before we give the floor, Sadiq Mohammed, yes.
Yes, yes. Good evening, panel.
Good evening.
I really appreciate the conversations. Mine is a brief question. I've put it in the inbox. You can see it in the inbox, my question.
When did you send it, please?
Okay, I can just read it out loud.
Okay.
My question is maybe to the legal, to Ezi. Currently, we are having challenges in terms of the diplomatic activities. In Kenya, in African countries, we have the issue of geopolitical issues. We have the economic issues. So how could diplomacy navigate these challenging issues so that we can have a stabilization of the currencies to empower the economic issues? That is my question.
Okay. To whom is directed your question to, or the panelists are free to jump in?
To the panelists, but all of them, but Sonia and Ize, maybe can pick it because of the diplomatic experience.
All right. So Sonia and Precious. Sonia?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to get the question again.
Yeah, I was about to ask the same.
One of the biggest challenge in Africa in economic challenge is economic challenges and geopolitical challenges. How can the diplomats navigate through these areas, namely economic policies to promote development to currency stabilization and fair trade agreements?
Yes, thank you. In fact, that's an extremely important and interesting question, because that is what has been bedeviling Africa. The fact that we are not united and the fact that we do not have one currency is really our undoing. And speaking from the standpoint of Nigeria, everything is still hinged on the dollar. But with the advent of BRICS, we're trying to get out of that now. And it also depends on the region that you're from. I know that most of Francophone West Africa is also tied to the euro and to the, especially through France, right? So we still have these appendages of our erstwhile colonial masters. But Africa is waking up, albeit slowly, and we are trying to free ourselves from this shackle of financial dependency. Now so now, yes, sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I think her microphone has been opened accidentally.
Oh, So I think so. We need to. The African Union actually ought to have addressed this, but somehow there has been an African disunion. For so many reasons, we've not been able to unite. And again, most of it is because we had these strings that are attached from our previous colonial masters. France is pulling on the one side, the UK is pulling on the other side, America and Portugal or whoever else is involved because of their own selfish interests. We tried with ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, and I can't say it was a success because several member states have pulled out and we did not achieve what we wanted to achieve, again, because of pressure from the West. So it's an uphill task. Can we achieve it? Yes, we can. The foreseeable future, I can't tell, but I think this is the beginning. When young people like you begin to agitate towards it and begin to work actively, maybe you can put think tanks together, pressure groups, for us to actually get rid of this and then begin to use our own currencies and ensure that our own currencies are strong. But it's something that is not, I think it's bigger than this particular forum. But it is a beginning, it is a seed, we'll water it, it will grow, and by God's grace, it will come. We will see it in our lifetime. I pray so. Thank you. I'll leave it here for now.
Thank you, Sonny. Precious. Yes, your microphone. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So the reason for why there's like a difference in currencies between maybe African countries or third world countries and more developed countries. I mean, I'm not an economist by any means, but I'm just giving my own understanding. There are so many reasons for that. One could be the fact that we export more than we import more than we export. Also, political instability. You know, in so many countries in Africa, there's always a coup or political upheavals. So this adversely affects the attractiveness of foreign investors to come in and invest. Also, inflation. Many countries are passing through like inflation and also foreign debts. So one thing I believe is like this, I mean, like most of these international organizations who always give countries, African countries, loans and loans and loans. I feel like one major way like to improve our own status is to take a break on these loans, because these loans usually have very, very unfair policies and conditions upon which the loans are given. And when you read or when you investigate more about these loans, they're actually like setting the debt of us. So these are some of the reasons for like the currency, currency differences. And in terms of economic policies, I guess maybe like we'll just have to have more informed leaders who really have our interest at heart. And just like she said earlier, the fact that like Africa needs to do more, just like the European Union. Like the European Union, things are so integrated, they come together and one, and it's really, really like advances them. To think that, you know, like traveling within the EU from one country to another is a lot cheaper than even for me in Nigeria, traveling from Lagos to Abuja, much more. Like traveling within the EU is much cheaper than traveling within the African Union. So these things also impact intertrade between African countries, which would have been a cheaper and faster option. So I think, like she said, like, you know, addressing this whole African Union thing and making us really integrated would also solve some of our economic policy problems.
All right. Thank you very much, Precious. We are almost
just to add
yes,
few like
Tamara.
one or two things quickly, actually, to complete what Sonia and Precious has just mentioned. Actually, as diplomats, you know, sometimes it's really difficult for us to go toward some specific questions related matters. You know, sometimes like, for example, when countries, you know, each country is sovereign. Like we talk about sovereignty a lot, like, you know, you cannot divert some of the things. This is one of the challenge that diplomats also have when they are dealing with some kind of discussion related to specific question like geopolitics and others. You know, every country defends their sovereignty and also their agenda. And the second thing that I would like also to add will be directly in terms of like, you know, Africa exportation, as mentioned by Precious. Actually, here we are not in industrialized, you know, countries in Africa. Most of our products that are exported are raw materials. So when we you know, we kind of export all the product with all the value, and then we don't add any value to it, so it comes back again. When it comes back, so it's importation, it comes with the inflation as well. So this is something that we can also start working on, work very closely on the industrialization, and this depends on lots of other things, especially power, which is one of the biggest problems now in Africa, that people can look at, and also some other related, you know, export policies as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Maybe if Mr. Okanda, Stephen has something to add, otherwise, okay, good, thank you. So we're going forward. I can see another question in the chat box from Edwin Ntabo. Which are some of the opportunities offered by UN on online basis? I think that maybe you can find this answer on the internet. I don't know, Precious, as you are one of the panelists who talked about volunteering online and so on. I think, I guess the person can have the informations when she goes on, or he, on Google and tap in the research box some keywords regarding what he or she is looking for as volunteering opportunities.
And
I
the
know that,
United Nations volunteer actually has online positions as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
and this is the website if you want to register, unv.org. That said, once again, thank you so much to the panelists, to all of you who attended this webinar. I know we have so much to say. We will never finish with this subject. It's so we have so much to say. And without further remarks, I will give the floor to someone who is the PAYDF representative. I think you now are familiar with this concept or this word, which is PAYDF, with Pan-African Young Diplomats Forum. And the Global Bridge Diplomacy today has offered us this a webinar. I would like to thank also all the organizers, and let's introduce this person who is going to give us the closing words for this webinar. His name is Dr. Onoche Abraham Lawrence, a administrator and board member at Banjul City Council from the Gambia. He has already accomplished many incredible feats and amazing addition to the team of PAYDF. Some of his achievements include PhD in Human Resource Management, Master's in International Human Resource Management, Postgraduate Diploma in Strategic Management, and so on and so forth. He's also author of 8 books published in 8 different languages, in 8 different languages across 130 countries, and 6 international e-journals, with co-author leading paper on SSRN ranked top 10. first national coordinator to have successfully completed Gallup's World Poll project in the Gambia in 2017 after 5 unsuccessful attempts with other consultants. This word reminds me what Precious was previously talking about. Never, ever give up. Doctor, you have the floor for the closing words. Dr. Lawrence, are you with us? Is he around? What is Chris? I'm not seeing the doctor for the closing remarks. Chris, are you around? Caroline, who can help? This has been really informative. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you, Lane. Yes, Chris. Where is the doctor?
His Linda is around to give the closing.
Okay. And we have some very encouraging words in the chat box here. Thank you so much for this wonderful sharing platform, very encouraging. And someone else said, let us have more sessions, very interactive and educative. And this has been really informative. Thank you to the organizers, and I look forward to yet another interactive session. And one of our speakers, Sonia, thank you everyone. It was an exciting session. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you all. Pauline, our education systems don't favor Africans. In the West, a 15 years old can easily earn an income and get experience way too early. All right. That said, we can give the floor to one of the PAYDF representative for the closing words, as we are already at the end of this session.
So, sorry. Thank you, everyone. So, Geneva, I will have to leave. I have another quick call soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to meet everyone, and hope to catch you back again. Thanks.
Thank you. Goodbye, Mamadou and Precious. Thank you. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure meeting you all. I guess we can give the floor to one of the representatives of Pan-African Young Diplomats Forum who is around to represent Dr. Lawrence for the closing words you would like to give us before we leave. Chris, who can talk on behalf of the forum members?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Linda.
Okay, I'm talking on behalf of the Pan-African Young Diplomats Forum. Thank you, everyone, for your active participation, the speakers, the participants, the moderator, Dainebe. Thank you. We offer our sincere gratitude to everyone who has participated, the panelists, the questions. It was actually a very interactive session. And on this note, we also convey our heartfelt gratitude to our partner, the Global Bridge Diplomacy. I don't remember how. For their unwavering dedication, their participation. This is a very, very interactive one. I can say that personally, I grabbed a lot for the shared values in empowering the young people and diplomats. Then we're also pleased that this partnership has yielded a productive and impactful collaboration through our collective efforts. We have also made concrete difference. And I also believe that each and every one of us have grabbed one thing, or even more, I grabbed more. And I am very, very glad. We look forward to more events like the upcoming climate change in May 2025. We also want to use this opportunity to invite organizations too, because we believe that there will be more organizations, more individuals that will be interested in the future. You are welcome to share your passion in addressing climate change in Africa. That way, you're also going to help us in achieving the Africa Summit of 2063 and UN Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. At this juncture, we are also optimistic that the valuable insights and expertise that we've shared here, especially the ones shared by the speakers, will empower each and every one of us to make informed decisions in our different organizations, in our career paths, in our workplaces, in our local community most especially, because I believe that development should start from the grassroots. Ultimately, to also help us to nurture our professional growth, development, and positive change. Finally, on behalf of the Pan-African Youth Diplomat Forum and Global Bridge Diplomacy, we convey our warmest congratulations to all of us, the participants, the speakers, on this successful participation. Your engagements, enthusiasm, and dedication, despite your busy schedules, is truly appreciated. On this note, I also wish that we continue to keep in touch, as I wish all of us continued success in our careers and our future endeavors. And we also wish that the inspiration gained from this program will also propel each and every one of us to achieving our goals, our positively impacting in our different local communities, in our workplaces, and also in our future endeavors. Thank you again for your active participation. We look forward to staying connected and achieving more. I hereby declare this event formally closed. God bless us all. Ogechukwu Udoji Linda for President, Pan-African Youth Diplomats Forum.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, good night.
Oh, we are still having some question in the chat. Maybe you can share, Patricia and Pauline, you can share your address so that the organizer will be in touch with you. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys, and thank you.